All right, welcome back to episode 4 of Steeler Thoughts, Chief Feelings. I am the co-host, Chris. I keep wondering if I should say my last name. My last name is Dorst, and I'm a philosopher, which still feels very weird to say. But anyway, the co-host on the other side of the Zoom meeting is.
I'm Ajay Nair. I'm the psychiatrist, and oh man, what an exciting day to be here. First of all, just thanks to everybody that listens to the podcast. It's available everywhere you get podcasts, pretty much. I'm sure there's some obscure places it's not available, but also we're here on YouTube and we're releasing shorts every day. You can also follow us on Instagram at STCF715 or on TikTok at STCF8. As you can see, I really have to think about our acronym quite a bit in order to be able to say it correctly. But yeah, thanks for all of you. And we had some people comment a lot this week, so I really appreciated that. And any questions you put in the comments, we'll try to bring up on the show. Um, I guess we do have to start with the state of the Chiefs today.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's an important day, right? If you haven't heard, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl on Sunday in a thrilling game over the 49ers. I mean, I think I think we should just start with a bunch of thoughts about it, right? So I have essentially all my questions about the current state of the Chiefs are about the Super Bowl. Um, and I'm sure there's plenty more to discuss. But I guess first things first, uh, how does it feel to win back-to-back Super Bowls? I mean, not many people have felt that.
It's incredible. It's amazing. I I'm actually just so proud. I wore this shirt because I haven't even had this shirt for a year and it's now obsolete. So I'm gonna have to give it a little update here, right there, just to
If you
make it
can't see,
accurate.
what's happening is Jay has a shirt that has the three previous Chiefs Super Bowl wins, and he just put a sticky note that's falling off now that says 2023 on it.
It's
Um,
clearly not. This isn't a good advertisement for Post-it, but yeah. I mean, it's just it's so cool. Here, I'm gonna take this off, but it's I don't know. It's amazing to be able to. It never gets old. Even just being in the Super Bowl doesn't get old. I remember like as they were doing player introductions and everything, like oh man, it doesn't get old. And then to win it, and not only to go back to back, but the one thing we didn't really have in the Super Bowl was like a game-winning play kind of scenario, with like last-minute drive to win the Super Bowl. So, I mean, last year we drove down and kicked the field goal, but it was a little marred by the holding penalty, and it was just a field goal, and so like this was just another level. So, oh yeah, it's amazing.
yeah, I mean, right. So after one, you could. There's sort of a feeling that when you win it in one season, like you had to be good to do it, but it could have been kind of a fluke, right? And certainly not in this case, right? Well, I mean, back-to-back years and 3 and 5 years, and you've been to four. I mean, nothing fluky about that, right? You're clearly the best team in the league over a very long stretch of time there. Um, I don't know when the Steelers won it, even like in 2005, there was a thought like, well, maybe that's just a fluke because we just got hot or whatever. And then in 2008, Brady was out that whole year, and surely things would have been different if he wasn't. So like I had that feeling like, yeah, it was great to win it, but we might not have been the best team in the league if everyone were full strength. But I don't think you can tell that story here. It's pretty clear who the best team in the league was, which must feel good.
Yeah, especially because this year when we didn't look like the best team through a lot of the regular season, we went through what by like DVOA was the hardest playoff run in NFL history. And of course, DVOA only goes back to like 1980 or 81 or something, so it's possible there was one that was harder. But like to beat the Dolphins, who put up 70 this year, and then to go to Buffalo, beat the Bills, then to beat the one seed in the AFC, the Ravens, and then beat the one seed in the NFC, the Niners. Like, I mean, it's hard to argue that we weren't the best team this year, and that just feels, oh man, it's so great.
Yeah, they definitely earned it, right? Um, okay, let me think about what the next best question to ask would be. Maybe, I mean, we texted a bit about this, and it felt to me like the fourth quarter, especially like maybe midway through the fourth quarter on, that game was just like on a knife's edge the whole time, right? Like I could not figure out who was going to win. It felt like anyone could win it, and there were multiple points at which it was like it could be decided here and it wasn't, or it could be decided here and it wasn't, and then finally at the end, it was obviously on the very last play. But what can you take us through like what you were thinking a bit during that stretch where it was just like everything is hanging in the balance here?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that was nice was I just had so much confidence in our defense. I every time they got the ball, I was feeling like we had it almost felt like there was a 50-50 shot for a three and out. That didn't always bear out that way toward the end, but at least that was a little helpful. And from the moment that we got that muffed punt in, to and we scored on the first play to MVS, suddenly the offense actually started looking good after that. Like we started, I think we had every single drive after that was 60 plus yards. So it was extremely intense, but there was at least to me, it was always like if we can just get the ball, like I think if we can get the ball in a one score game, we could do this. And when we were giving them the ball, I was still felt pretty decent about the defense, but I think that started to change. The time when I got really, really worried was when they, came down the field and it looked like they might be able to run the clock out. I think they ended up getting like first and 10 at our 40 with 3:27 left. And then on first down, Christian McCaffrey got 5 yards. And I was like, oh no. Like, if they get a first down here, and, they ended up getting it down to the 2 minute warning. And then they had a 3rd and 5. And they threw that pass that was knocked down by Trent McDuffie, which was just a colossal play. Monumental, because if they get a first down there, I mean, they're running the clock down to almost nothing and kicking a field goal. So that was absolutely terrifying, and especially because we have been in situations like that recently, a couple times against the Bengals, where it's a tie game or we're down by 3 and they're just driving, and we can't stop them and they run out the clock. So that was the worst. Besides those times, like I always believed it was possible, even though I was unable to breathe. But that part right there was the first time when they got that first down with 3:27 left. I was like, we actually might lose this game. Like it might be gone. But somehow they pulled it out.
Yeah, I think that was the point too, where especially when that 3rd and 5 or 4, whatever it was, right at the 2 minute warning, and I was thinking, I was talking with Kayla at the time, with my partner at the time, and was saying like it might not be obvious to like the average fan here or the person that's just watching football for the first time, but like this is the game, right? This play is the game, right? And the announcers made it clear that that's really what was happening. But I remember I was super stressed at that point. I can't imagine what you would feel like, given how stressed I was, and I don't have as much riding on this by a long shot. But,
Yeah, the play, like obviously like the third down play was extremely stressful, but the weirdest part is the most stressful was them getting 5 yards on first down and then realizing like, oh my god, they only need 2 downs to get 5 yards, like, or 4 yards, whatever it was. Like that was really terrifying, and it eased just the slightest bit when we stopped them on second down, and then it's all I. The weird thing is somehow Steve Spagnuolo manages to get free rushers on these crucial plays. The way that Trent McDuffie like kind of stayed at the slot state, and he actually like subtly backpedaled a little bit before the snap before going. Like, oh man, I don't get it. I don't know how they can fool the protection so often. Apparently, we had 9 unblocked rushers in that game. just unbelievable.
Yeah, that's good scheming, whatever you're doing to get nine unblocked rushers in one game. But I mean, yeah, you knew he was going to send a blitz at that point too. That's the other thing. Like San Francisco, they have nothing to lose at that point, right? So you have to send a blitz, and make him do something. And it has to be an unexpected thing. And to send a blitz like that when San Francisco knows you're sending a blitz and make it one that they don't know how to block or they're not expecting is sort of extra impressive. I feel like. Um, what about in overtime? Like, what were your feelings in overtime as San Francisco drives down the field and then kicks the field goal?
It was, uh, it was, you know, similarly very. I was very nervous, but there's at least the understanding that we're going to get the ball. So, you know, it at least took the edge off that wasn't there at the end of regulation. In overtime, again, because they got much closer to the end zone in overtime, right? Like they were inside the 15, I think. Uh, and that was like I was really worried they were going to score, but again, like the way that they and Chris Jones, first of all, I don't know, like I don't think that was scheme on that third down when Chris Jones just came free against Purdy. They had to have messed something up in the protection because that I don't know that a scheme is going to result in Chris Jones coming unblocked. Like that seems
Yeah.
impossible. So I think that they messed something up in the protection, and Chris Jones and Justin Reed came free, but Chris Jones got in his face and managed to cause Purdy to overthrow Jennings because Jennings was coming open on a whip route on the right side of the field, and Ayuk was coming open in the end zone on the left side of the field. Like, if he had any time, that would have been catastrophic. So, whew, like, just some really big plays by some really big players.
Yeah, and then okay, so you get the field goal, and then you get the ball back, and was there? I think there was a fourth down pretty quickly, right on that drive, in the
I
first set
think
of
it
downs
was the
there.
first set of downs. Yeah, I think so. If not the first, it was the second.
And what were you? I mean, I imagine that's another point where you're like, oh boy, right? Hold on to your seats.
I to really like my thought was just like just don't mess up. Like don't Creed don't give us a bad snap. Like don't somebody bobble the
Oh,
ball. Like it was
there were
just
a few
stuff
of
like that.
those.
Yeah. Which I mean it's a staple. Like if you look at the highlights of last year's Super Bowl, like Mahomes was catching snaps out to his right and picking snaps up off the ground. I actually think, you know, go at the end of regulation when, you know, we got down to what the 10-yard line or 9-yard line and we had that one play with 10 seconds left and, you know, he throws the back shoulder throw to Kelsey on the left. I believe that he would have gone first to Rasheed Rice over the middle, but I think it was the bad snap that threw off the timing of that play. I think he kind of had to reach for it. Timing is off. Like, I'm just going to go to Kelsey and get this ball out of my hands to try to get another play. And at that point, with 6 seconds left, Andy just wanted to kick the field goal. But I have a feeling if that was a good snap, maybe because you don't have time to do multiple reads, so maybe he was just going to go to Kelsey all the way. Yeah, it's possible, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I kind of feel like it's we've kind of gone to Rice on those little kind of stop routes or little in cuts. Like it's kind of a little slant from the slot, and he, you know, we had a timeout, so there's nothing wrong with throwing short of the end zone, and he had the ability to run that in. So I will firmly believe. I think he would have thrown that pass if not for the bad snap there.
I mean, and he was open, right? It would have been a touchdown if he threw that. If he had time to think about where to throw that. Yeah, that's right. Okay, but then so after the fourth down play in overtime, they convert. I think was it a Mahomes scramble that they converted, uh, and then he did a couple other big scrambles on that drive. Was the rest of the drive just smooth sailing psychologically for you, or or how are you feeling
Uh,
then?
no, I think the other real rough one was uh, we had a third down and they came at us with a zero blitz, which for the listeners and watchers, it's a zero blitz means that there's no deep safety. So basically, you have one man to account for each potential pass catcher, and everybody else is rushing the quarterback. and they came zero at us, and Mahomes took like a full 3 seconds to throw that ball, and it was to Rice on a crosser. And like I was like, how is no one open? How is no one open? Like, but he was just waiting for the crosser, and the line really held up on that play. I think that's one thing that, especially the right side of our line with Juwan Taylor over there on the right, he had been getting so much after Chris Collinsworth called him out in the first game of the year, and he was the most penalized player in the league this year. I thought he was awesome in the Super Bowl. Like most of Nick Bosa's pressure that wasn't like a very delayed pressure was from the other side. And the fact that they moved Nick Bosa tells you how well Juwan Taylor was playing on the right. But anyway, that was an extremely nerve-wracking play. That third down, because for whatever reason on 4th and 1, like obviously a mistake kills you, like you're done. But Andy Reid just always seems to have something on 4th down. Like I knew we were gonna have like a puncher's chance with the play, as long as we didn't make a mistake. And that kind of leads into, when I predicted the game last week, a lot of it I got wrong as far as like game script and everything. I think
I will
that,
say you got the initial. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
You did get the initial tendency for the wide receiver screens and the misdirection plays at the beginning. They did do that. There just wasn't a lot of scoring at the beginning like you predicted there would be.
Yeah, I thought we'd
Call.
score a little earlier. I think I said 23-20 and it ended up being 25-22. But as you and I talked throughout the week, I was actually getting increasingly confident in the Chiefs win. So, I was going the wrong direction in my prediction as the week went on. But I think toward the end of the game, like that 4th down play, they did start doing even a different kind of misdirection with Nick Bosa, and it was the zone read. So like on the 4th down, they fake the handoff to Pacheco, Nick Bosa crashes, and Mahomes runs right around him. And that ended up happening again on another, so it was once on the 4th down scramble, and once he had like a 22-yard scramble where they did something similar, where again it was a fake handoff to Pacheco, he's just reading Bosa, and Bosa was just not even thinking about it, crashing in. It was like Kendrell Bell back in the old Chiefs days, like just letting the quarterback go right around. That's my enduring memory of Kendrell Bell, is getting sucked inside on a play action every time.
Yeah. But speaking of those Mahomes scrambles, you could tell. It felt to me like he was, he would have slid a bit earlier if it were maybe the regular season, but he was going all out there, and you could tell he was getting every yard at that point. I think that if it were, this is the Super Bowl, you give it everything you've got. So
And
that was cool.
that scramble he had up the middle that really put them in scoring. I think it got him down to like the 12 or inside the 15. That was another beautiful Mahomes-Kelsey play, because Mahomes, I think the Niners did an awesome job on the edges with their contained rush. Even Nick Bosa, who normally is just like going up the arc so strong, was like hanging out and waiting for Mahomes to try to break contain, and then Bosa was ready for him a lot of times. And so Mahomes, in this case, in overtime, just took it right up the middle. And one thing that Kelsey did, Kelsey's running a crosser, and right when he sees Mahomes run, he takes the crosser upfield, taking his defender with him. And just like those little things are just, that's what wins football games. And it was just, of course, it was Mahomes and Kelsey working together. It was the different kind of their, telepathic connection. This time with Mahomes scrambling, Kelsey seeing it and getting his defender out of the way. It was great.
Yeah, that's awesome to see. I think there were a couple other plays earlier in the Chiefs season where I remember like a wide receiver doing something like that as well. Maybe it was in the playoffs even, I don't know. But
I think Pacheco did it once in the playoffs, if I remember correctly. I can't remember what game it was. I think it was the Bills game, but I'm not sure.
I wonder if that's the kind of thing where, like so many of the players are doing that they probably talk. That's a coach thing, right? It's a sign of good coaching. Was there any point in the game where you were like pretty sure the Chiefs were going to lose?
I think just that moment when, in the fourth quarter when I thought they could run out the clock. I think that was when we had 2nd and 5 at like the 35 or whatever. That I was like, oh man, that was it though. I think there was just too much time earlier when we weren't looking good, and our defense was playing too well. I think that was the big difference between this year's Chiefs. This is the kind of game that could have gone the way of like the Buccaneers Super Bowl, when we lost 31-9. And part of the reason our offense figured it out is because we got so many possessions because the defense was playing so well. I think if we had the 2020 Chiefs defense, I think we lose this game fairly handily, unfortunately.
Yeah, it did feel like it could. I think. I mean, you texted me at some maybe the second quarter or something where it's thought like, yeah, this might be another Bucks situation, just because the offense wasn't doing anything and the defense was not giving up a ton of points, but there were also some mistakes from San Francisco that were preventing them from scoring more, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you know the team better than I do. I think toward the end of the second quarter, maybe even early third quarter, I was thinking this is not good, right? But then again, with Mahomes, you always have you're always in it, and you can't expect the offense to just not figure it out for 4 quarters, and it's not what happened, right? They figured it out. Um, were there any? There's one potential answer to this that I might expect, but were there any situations where San Francisco made a decision that you thought, like that was a gift, like I'm glad they did that, um, uh, where like you were worried they would make the other decision, essentially?
Uh, well, for the first one that comes to mind is the decision to take the ball in overtime.
Yeah.
I was really hoping that San Francisco would have the ball in overtime, and I don't think it's like a no-brainer decision. Like I listened to Shanahan's explanation that he wanted the ball third, um, but I do think the one thing is that if in this overtime model you're going to take the ball first, you have to score a touchdown. Like I think it's too risky to give the ball to the other team with the chance to them closing it out. If you're not like almost to the point that like maybe down, if you get fourth and four or less, that you just go for it. That I feel like you have to score. And so I remember saying to myself, like, if we win this toss, please kick, please kick, please kick. And it sounds like that's what Andy Reid was going to do. So when Shanahan took the ball, I was thrilled.
Yeah, that was the answer I thought you might give. I mean, there were. It's interesting though because there's rules these new overtime rules that we're not used to. I mean, this is the first time we've seen them, right?
Yeah.
And they're only for the playoffs at least at the moment. Yeah, they do add some wrinkles that you wouldn't have had to think about before, right? Exactly like you're saying. I mean, if the first team gets the ball and scores a field goal, the second team is going to have sort of an epistemically superior situation, right? They know what they have to do in order to keep the game going, and they know how to end the game essentially. Whereas the first team doesn't know that on their first drive. Um, and I guess there is the thinking that if you're tied after 2 drives, then you have an advantage, assuming you received first. But I don't know. Yeah, there's a good number of wrinkles there that I feel like it's fun to think through the different scenarios.
Yeah, and Andy Reid apparently told his players that if the Niners had scored a touchdown, the Chiefs were going to go for two. Like they didn't want to give the ball back to the Niners with a chance to win with a field goal. So there's that when you're the second team also, that you can still try to end the game on your terms.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I had heard that. And there was also this whole thing about the 49ers players not knowing the overtime rules. Uh, I wasn't clear on when they didn't know them. I think they didn't talk about them before the game. Is that right? I mean, I'm not sure because they were explained by the ref at the coin toss, and so you would have thought at that point at least they would know them. Um,
I think at least what Eric Armstead said is like that when they came up on the Jumbotron and the ref was explaining it was the first time he learned of them, which this is another kind of top. I was talking to my wife about this actually. Like, it is so interesting how different of a world we fans and players live in, right? Like, they are eating, breathing, and sleeping football. And to us, this is like the football stuff we consume, right? When the Chiefs beat the Bills in the 13-second game and the competition committee changes the rules and like, oh no, overtime is different. Like, we talked about that so much. It's like second nature to us that the playoff rules are different. And I feel like I think about it every time there is an overtime in the regular season. Like, well, if this was in the playoffs, this would. So it's so interesting to me that football players who live this, like, that's not on their radar. Like, that's not how they are consuming information. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, you brought up a similar thought previously with the Kelsey brothers not knowing where the red zone was, or thinking about where the red zone started on that podcast, right? Like as a viewer, of course you know that, right? Every time you enter the red zone, the announcers will say something about it, essentially. But uh, without the announcers there, I guess that's one of those things that's more sort of manufactured for broadcast than it is really important to the teams.
Yeah, yeah, and it just reminds us how, well, at least with the red zone stuff, how arbitrary some of these distinctions that we take so seriously can be. Uh, but yeah, it's, I don't know. It is, you just assume that everyone consumes this content the same way, and that's just not the case.
Yeah. Um, how about, are there any other places or situations where you thought San Francisco made a decision that was not was helpful to you as the Chiefs? Because to me, it looked like, as an impartial observer, well, I wasn't impartial, but as a somewhat detached observer, it looked like they played a pretty smart game overall, right? They didn't. I mean, they made mistakes, but they weren't. I would say, like, cognitive. A lot of the times they weren't cognitive mistakes, right? Like the ball bouncing off the blocker's foot on the return or whatever, right? Like that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a mistake, but it's not. I don't know.
There,
Didn't seem like they gave you a bunch of gifts, essentially.
yeah, I agree. I think they played a really good game. The only other things that I enjoyed, like talking about the that throw to Rice I talked about earlier when they zero blitzed, I did love it every time they blitzed. That because they were getting home with four for most of the game, not so much toward the end, but and Fred Warner was doing so well at taking away. Like, I believe it was in overtime. We had this screen set up to Isaiah Pacheco, and I mean, we didn't get the all 22 view yet, but I feel like he would have scored a touchdown if Fred Warner didn't just come screaming in and take him out from the side. Like, I don't know. I feel like you put any other linebacker in that position, like barring maybe one or two, like Pacheco might score. So I liked, they zero blitz. That means you're either putting Fred Warner on a blitz or he's manned up against somebody. I like that so much better than him patrolling the middle. And Mahomes is going to find the open guy against the blitz. So that was the only other thing. And I understand, like, you have to vary it up, but especially that crucial third down, and we were able to run a crossing route to Rice, like, I'm not sure I would have blitzed on that specific play.
Mm, yeah. Um, yeah, good. Well, if you're a 49ers fan, at least you don't have a lot to regret here. Maybe you have a ton to regret. I don't know. I have to ask you about it, although I don't really want to, because I just think it's one of those things that you can make a bunch out of where there's nothing really to be made out of it. But the Travis Kelsey, Andy Reid business, do you have any thoughts about that?
Basically, that, like, obviously it's easy to say now we won the Super Bowl, but I guarantee you, even in that moment, like, I didn't care at all. Like, Travis Kelsey and Andy Reid have such a good relationship, and Andy Reid has repeatedly talked about how he encourages Travis Kelsey's energy, and Travis has talked about how he feels like the team plays worse when he doesn't have energy. So, yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is, like, man, he's like 65 years old. Like, don't be going into him that hard. Like, get into his face, but don't, like, knock him over. Like, that was my only thought about that. But yeah, I wasn't concerned about it whatsoever. I feel like that's Travis. Not only he respects and fears Andy Reid way too much to do something that Andy would get mad about. So I didn't really think too much of it.
Yeah, yeah. And plus, maybe it was the mustache. That's what lets you think you can get right up in his face, right? Like he can take it. He's got a mustache.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay. That's refreshing to hear. My Twitter timeline, or my X timeline, whatever we're supposed to call it, blew up at that point with people upset, I guess, or whatever. Faux outrage is what I would say it was. I mean, whatever. I mean, it happened, but like, what are we supposed to make of it? Nothing. I think we should make nothing of it. Okay. Chances of a three-peat. What do you think at this point? Obviously, there's a lot to happen, but at least we get to ask the question now.
Yeah, it's very fun to be able to ask the question for sure. I, you know, obviously, like part of it is you have to think about what the rest of the league's going to look like. Now we've got Harbaugh in the division. Uh, the Ravens will be back with a vengeance. Uh, so teams will be different, but from just a sole Chiefs perspective, I like it. I don't. I think that the Chiefs will be better next year than this year. I think that we had a lot of ups and downs, and we still kind of sputtered. I don't anticipate our offense to be this level of an offense in most of our years. We've had a pretty good sample now of the Chiefs having an explosive offense, even if it's not always like lots of air yards down the field explosive. But I think we're going to get back to that. That Brett Veach is going to kind of correct for the assumptions we made that a couple wide receivers would develop in ways that they didn't, and I think we'll put a few more safeguards in to make sure the offense remains very powerful. And this defense, when the kind of big thing will be if we do lose Chris Jones and or L'Jarius Sneed, how we account for that. So it's possible the defense takes a step back, but we still have a lot of young guys that are still growing and have been through a lot now. We have third-year players that have been on 2 Super Bowl runs and have seen a lot, and so I think the team's going to be better. And so if the rest of the league doesn't improve, I like the chances quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I agree. And looking at it from the rest of the league's perspective, it's not obvious who you would be super worried about. I mean, obviously, any given Sunday, and it's not like it was smooth sailing all season this year, but uh, like Chiefs, they're clearly the best team right now, right? Like, and who's the person that, or who's the team that's going to be standing in their way? I mean, Baltimore is always a worry, and I guess you did mention, right? Who knows what the Chargers will do with Harbaugh, but it does feel like the AFC is there for the taking in a way that, like earlier this season, I might not have thought, or at the beginning of the season, I would have thought it was just stacked, and whoever comes out of it is going to be, you know, be really battle tested. But I don't know. The AFC seems weaker than I thought. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. But uh, I would feel fairly comfortable. Not like you expect to win it again, but at least I wouldn't think it's certainly out of the question, right? It seems like they should be the favorite to win it again.
Yeah, and we kind of have the added benefit of, a couple teams, mainly the Bills and the Chargers, really went all in the last couple years and now have to kind of pay the piper with the salary cap. So we have that. Yeah, as much as I am interested in seeing Harbaugh's effect, because Harbaugh does seem to turn teams around very quickly, uh, they don't have a lot of flexibility this year financially. So it might take him a little longer because of that. At least I hope so.
Right. Um, my last question for you is an odd question to ask, especially 2 days after winning a Super Bowl. But is there anything barring? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I won't bar anything here. Is there anything that could happen that you think that would make you not a Chiefs fan anymore?
I mean, I feel like it would have to be something quite egregious. Like someone would have to do something off the field that was indefensible, and then remain with the team, or that indefensible act would have to then remain associated with the team somehow. Because like there were Chiefs players that I didn't like, and then was happy that they left the team, and then you can go back to, you know, feeling good about rooting for them. So that's the only thing I could think of, is that if someone did something really terrible and then continued to be associated with the team, uh, I can't think of any
Yeah,
other scenario.
yeah, yeah. I was asking myself this question not as a Chiefs fan, but just what would make you give up your fandom? And I think, I mean, the only other thing is like something very gruesome, like a player dying on the field or something. I can imagine something like that would just turn me off from the game entirely, and then
Yeah.
consequently as a Steelers fan. But um, it is weird that we sort of this is like it's part of our identities almost, right? Like,
Yeah.
or it is
Yeah.
it is part of our identities.
Yeah. I had a
Well, that's
mentor.
all.
I was just gonna say I had a mentor actually. One of the things when you're in psychiatry residency, a lot of them you join this like process group where you process your feelings every week. When I was a resident, and the group leader used to always be surprised. He mentioned how surprised he was how much my emotions were based on how the Chiefs had done the previous weekend. So
Yeah, that's right. That's what it's like. Should we take a break and then come back in a bit?
sounds good. All right, we'll be back. And we're back. If anyone can guess all of the differences between the first part of the podcast and this part, I will refund you the entire cost of this podcast.
The visual differences. I mean, we will say different things presumably, but
Yeah, that's a good point. This is useless for the audio listeners. This is just for anyone watching the video. There are some differences. And if you notice them, congratulations.
yeah, we should start putting Easter eggs in our podcasts. That's a good idea.
All right. Any more thoughts? Any more questions? Chiefs questions?
I have more Chiefs questions, but I think they might. I don't know. I wonder if I should leave them for general NFL questions at this point. I mean, here's one, and yeah, here's one. So at this point, at this point in Mahomes' career, uh, what's like the sort of 90% confidence interval for how many Super Bowls he'll end up with by the time he retires, right? So like if you played his career out from this point on, say 1,000 times, what's the 90% range where he ends up with that many Super Bowls? Um,
Oh man, you're gonna make me sound real cocky. Because we're at 3-6, right? Oh,
yep.
so you want me to give like an upper and lower limit for the
Yeah,
confidence
yeah,
interval?
yeah.
Man, I can say the lower limit is 4. I feel like that's still pretty confident. Like, assuredly, he's gonna win one more. But the upper limit, I'm gonna set at like 9.
I feel like you want to go higher, but it's like I can't say 10, right?
Like, if hopefully, we are blessed to see him play another at least 12 years at a high level. Like, that would be awesome. I think that's asking a lot, but that would be great. Like, I mean, when you say it like that, like 9 Super Bowls in 12 years sounds like a. Oh, no, we were saying 9 total, right? Yeah, 9 total.
Yeah,
6 and
yeah.
12. I mean, that's still a lot, but he's gone 3-6. So I feel like putting his current rate as the highest point on the 90% confidence interval, I feel like it's fair, actually. Yeah, I'm going to feel
Yeah.
good about that. 4-9.
Yeah. I mean, they did lose one in there too, right? So, uh, I don't know if that helps or hurts the case, but I don't know. It's relevant. uh, yeah. Okay. 4-9. I'll take it. I could see high. I could see going higher, to be honest, but
Oh, boy.
we don't want to alienate the viewers already. Okay. There you have it. 4-9, folks.
Uh, all right. If you don't have any more like Super Bowl related, maybe I could just rapid fire a few Super Bowl thoughts before we move on.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple. I think we did talk about a lot of the things, but first of all, I must say I didn't expect this 49ers defensive line to dominate like they did. which sounds dumb because they're all really good players. You know, Chase Young, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, and Nick Bosa are all like big name, like good players. But they really hadn't looked like this for like at least 6 weeks. So, you know, I just kind of felt like who the Chiefs were in the playoffs and who the 49ers were in the playoffs would be the most likely versions of the teams we would see. And at least defensively, the 49ers did not do that. They reverted back to like very early year, like just utterly dominant. So that surprised me. Um,
Yeah, they were. I mean, that must have been worrying to see at the start, especially because that's the recipe for, another Bucks like Super Bowl, right? And to see them dominating like that would be, I don't know, evoking some stress of prior years there.
yeah, and it's funny, like I had said that I thought that the way that we would have trouble offensively is if Nick Bosa ruined the game for us. And then like early on, like we're getting pressure from the D tackles, and Chase Young gets a sack, and I'm like, what in the world? Like, I didn't even consider these guys running the game. Not that Nick Bosa didn't do his part, but like I was like, wow, this is terrible. Okay.
Yeah, they were playing really high energy at the beginning there. I thought. I mean, the whole game, but
All right. Thought number two. I thought, I kind of mentioned this, but the defense was just so locked in. And for the most part, they really did handle the run very well. I think in that kind of middle half of the game, I thought they really made it difficult to run. And I saw, Bill Barnwell had an article where he put like the dots up for a couple of their runs in the middle of the game, or at least the formations. And the Chiefs literally a couple of times had like 10 people in the box and one deep safety. Like they were basically just like, no, you're not running it. Um, I thought also that we handled Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo Samuel fairly well. Like we didn't let any of them kill us. I think Ayuk and Debo each had a couple like decent catches. Kittle had that fourth down catch, which was you talked about a gift. I feel like if Shanahan had kicked that field goal, that would have been a gift. But he went for it on fourth down and converted.
yeah.
Um, that was a great play by them. Also, I was looking up, so a guy named Bob Sturm had posted a couple of like the snap percentages with different coverages. Steve Spagnuolo went cover zero 21.4% of our snaps. For reference, the 49ers saw a 6.2% rate the entire year. We did cover one 40.5% of the time, where they were used to seeing it about 23.8% of times. We went man to man 64% of the time, where their opponents throughout the year had done it 30% of the time. So, for the listeners, we kind of talked about cover zero. There's no safety in the middle. Cover one just means there's one safety deep. So, cover zero and cover one are both formations that are really looking to put pressure up at the line. So, it helps against the run, or, it's basically daring the offense to throw deep and believing that they will not beat you deep. And Kansas City did that a lot and didn't get beaten deep. And I thought that was an interesting commentary on how Purdy played, because overall his stats looked pretty good. But Stephen Ruiz from the Ringer made the point that he was seeing a lot of favorable passing looks. Like, yes, his stats look good, but the Chiefs are running cover zero, cover one a lot. So maybe his game wasn't quite as good as it kind of appeared initially, because he was throwing into a lot of favorable situations.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of man coverage there. What was it, 60 some percent man coverage?
64, yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I wonder what you think about the strategy there. I mean, that's on the one hand scary given the receivers that San Francisco has that can do a lot of damage after the catch, but maybe on the other hand they're thinking, given I mean, we talked about this last week, the very highly structured offense that's designed to get people open in particular places. That's easier to do against, is where you can sort of predict where those openings are going to be. Whereas if it's man coverage, that's going to rely on the receivers running away from the defender, and if you can't really plan that as well. I mean, maybe you can say if it's a double move, then there's a chance he'll break free at that point. But I wonder if that's related to why they were thinking we'll go man heavy here, so they can't scheme people open as easily.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably exactly what it was. And that kind of faith that we could press them and bump them off their routes to mess with their timing. And we have big corners. McDuffie is our smallest corner, and he's still very physical. But Snead, Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson are very big, very physical corners. So I think that was the strategy, to not give them something that was easy and make them have to work to get open and hopefully mess with their timing, which it seems like happened enough, at least, for us to win.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonder if that'll be a blueprint going forward.
Yeah.
A lot of man against the 49ers.
I think next thought was that, surprisingly, in kind of a rarity, especially in big games, like I feel like it's fair to say that the Andy Reid game plan didn't really work. Like, we were really struggling early on, but he clearly found some stuff toward the end. I think he was able to get situations where Kelsey was uncovered. He went for 1 yard in the first half and 92, I believe, in the second half. I think one of the things they started doing a lot, and Romo did a good job talking about this, was that the Niners were kind of dropping to the sticks a lot, and we started taking the underneath stuff and trying to make them come up, and I think that opened things up a little bit for us. And I think we were doing a little better job, too, anticipating those cover zero looks and those more man looks and running appropriate things like crossers, mesh concepts, and things like that to get people open. So Andy seemed to get a little bit better of a beat on what they were doing and to have the right plays called in the right situations. There was another big, I think it was a third down play. It was a swing pass to McKinnon out of the backfield, and again it was a blitz from Steve Wilks. And again, Andy just seemed to kind of know what they were doing when we got to the end. But I thought overall, it's weird to see Andy Reid come in and like the first 15 not be really sharp and the initial game plan not be really sharp, but that was the case.
Yeah, early on it seemed like the really prepared stuff. The Niners had the advantage there, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Although it didn't reflect in the score. I think that was probably pretty significant, that they could not take advantage of their dominance in the first quarter or so.
Yeah, and I remember saying to my wife in the second quarter, like, the one positive we can continue to look at, if I was a 49ers fan, I would be absolutely furious that we weren't winning the game by more. Like, they just utterly dominated the game and didn't have very much at all to show for it. And they did enough to continue to bump up Mahomes' record when trailing by 10 or more points, which was fantastic. And then
Is that now every Super Bowl win now has been trailing by at least 10? Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. He's 3-1 in Super Bowls where he's been down by 10 points.
It's interesting too, because those are, you think of Mahomes as like this. It's like it's almost the game is too easy for him, but it's not, right? Like in the big moments, it's always been a nail biter, and that's what keeps it fun, I think. If it were just, I don't know, maybe for a Chiefs fan, it would just be a lot of fun if you were blowing everybody out constantly. But for the rest of us, I think it is more fun when it's tense like that. So it's good to see.
Even if we weren't blowing everyone up constantly, just sometimes. Like, can we blow some people out sometimes? But yeah,
Have a relaxing Super Bowl.
yeah, it would be nice. I think, if I remember correctly, I don't think Mahomes has led at halftime in any Super Bowl he's played in. The closest was I'm pretty sure Super Bowl 54 against the Niners. I think it was 10-10 at the half, so I think we were tied. I think, but I could be wrong. They might have been leading.
That sounds believable to me. I'm not sure.
I'm fairly confident that we had 10 points at the half. I know we were down 20-10 at one point, but I think that didn't happen until the third quarter. I think it was 10-10 at the half. Someone will be easily looking this up on their phone while listening to this and either think I'm an idiot or be like, yes, we know, we'll keep moving. So I guess I will do so. The last point I had was just, I'm so happy that the touchdowns were by Marquez Valdez-Scantling and McCole Hardman. Like, just great redemption story. you know, I just love it. I love that these, and then McCole was on the podium with the Lombardi Trophy answering a question from Jim Nantz, who literally just gave him one question, was like, all right, you're good. Like, but, and I think McCole was on Jimmy Kimmel last night too, so I'm just so happy for him. Like, he was a second round pick, and Chiefs fans got on him a lot because he wasn't, especially after a promising rookie year in which I think he had more yards, I think, than Tyreek did in his rookie year, and he ended with like 6 touchdowns or something, and they were all 20-plus yard touchdowns, and we thought he was going to be this incredibly productive receiver, and you know, he was very good at what he did, and I don't think got enough credit for it. And then we got him back from the Jets this year, and he had a real rough year this year, but scored the winning touchdown. And MVS, I hope this kind of cements it for him. My personal belief was after last year's playoff run, all Chiefs fans should have been MVS supporters no matter what. Like, obviously you can criticize poor play, but like, come on, he was worth it for last year. But now he did it again, like 2 straight years where he had big plays in the playoffs, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, they were, they're maligned all year, and to show up big in the biggest game is nice redemption.
And
It
I
would have been
don't.
fun to have a Travis Kelsey touchdown too, though, right? I mean, it's hard to say no to that.
No, that's true. That would have been very fun. Uh, and I don't actually have evidence for this, but I think the end was a little bit of a Matt Nagy redemption story too, because gosh, that zone read stuff we were running looked a lot like what he did in Chicago. So it almost makes me feel like Nagy had a little bit of input on how the offense changed toward the end, and then when we started really having success. So I'd like to believe there's a little bit of Matt Nagy redemption there too.
That's cool.
All right. Well,
Any other thoughts on the game? Anything? I mean, there's so much. It was a long game too. There's a lot to talk about there. Um,
I mean, just that it honestly was everything I could ask for. Like, ultimately, when you sum it up, like, we go to overtime, Mahomes comes down and wins, and I really think he would have won it in regulation if we didn't run out of time. If he had one or two more plays, that might have been it. But it was just cool to see him turn it on. I will say this, like, I wish for every football fan to at some point in their life be able to experience this, because it's amazing. It's just amazing to have a guy that, like, you're just like, I can't put too much pressure on him and just assume he's going to come through every time, and then he just keeps coming through. And it's like, he can look terrible throws that pick to start the second half, and it's just like, oh boy. And then the last 4 drives, we score on all of them, and the last 3 drives are all 60-plus yards. Like, I used to I never was someone who used to say Patrick Mahomes is inevitable. I just never used that phrase. I felt like it would annoy people, but he is. It's right now, at least, he's inevitable, and who knows how long it'll last. Like, Brady went 10 years between Super Bowls. Like, you never know, but wow, it's amazing. It's as cool as one would think it is, and I hope it's after Mahomes is done, but I hope that other football fans get to experience this too. 'Cause I get why the Patriots fans were so happy all the time. Like, it's just amazing.
yeah, actually, that was one of my questions that I sort of a general NFL question, but I was going to ask if you think you have a bit more insight into what the mentality of Patriots fans was for all those years when they were just, obviously the best team in the league for so long. I mean, they didn't win Super Bowls the whole time, but they were always sort of the big bad guys, right? And and now that the Chiefs are, the next great American dynasty, to use a Taylor Swift song lyric almost. I wonder, yeah, I mean, I wonder how it feels. I mean, it must be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the one difference with the Patriots fans is, we didn't have the whole Spygate and Deflategate, like the us against the world thing. And as much as everybody doesn't like the team that's winning, I don't think the Chiefs are hated as much as the Patriots were. I think in general, Mahomes is still like roundly praised by the media and everything. Yes, there are people that are trying to take him down, but I don't think it's as much as with the Patriots. And if I, if you will allow me to stereotype a little bit. I don't think that I understand the provincial mindset of the Boston fan, who is already seems to be a little predisposed to the us against the world thing. So, but yeah. Besides that, yeah, I think just that firm belief that like when we've got him, like I'm never gonna count us out, and just having seen these situations where you just look back at these games, last year's Super Bowl, this year's Super Bowl, and just like, how did he do it? Like, I don't know, but it's so cool that he's on my team.
Yeah, yeah, that's got to be quite a feeling. Really fun to think
All right.
about.
Well, I
Where are we
think
here?
is that all we got for. I don't want the listening audience to be deprived of Steelers talk as well. We're just
Well, I mean, the Steelers talk is a much more subdued in its energy, let's say, just because of the Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. Then let's give them their moment, right? Yeah, I don't think I have anything else about the Super Bowl
all right. Well, we can go over to the Steelers. I have a couple thoughts, a couple questions to ask. So first of all, I don't know if you're aware. We kind of talked about this offline, like when it started, but I don't know if you've been keeping up with the fact that the Kelsey podcast, the New Heights podcast, is running a bracket for the best team name, and the finals actually. I haven't checked Twitter later today, or I guess we should call it X now. But the finals was between the Steelers and the Vikings, and the last that I saw, the Vikings were winning. But given that the Steelers are clearly, it's a name that has garnered a lot of support through this bracket, I would have thought the Chiefs and Eagles would win just because these are like fans of Travis and Jason Kelsey, but no, like the fans really went for it. I wanted your thoughts on why the Steelers name is so popular, and I want you to sell it to fans, especially fans that might have voted for the Vikings, or fans that might be upset that their team's name wasn't chosen. Why is the Steelers name such a good name?
That's good. Uh, I think, by the way, I think the Vikings won. At least someone tweeted that earlier. If it was going to be over today. But yeah, I mean, the Steelers. First of all, the logo is cool, right? It's the U.S. Steel Company logo. Here, my dog's trying to sit on my lap. So here you go, Mocha. Yeah, it's a U.S. Steel Company logo with some colors added, of course, and the ERS put on the end. But if you can still find this logo, I mean, it's been a while since I've noticed it, but sometimes on like a tin, or maybe not a tin can, but on a can of food or something, you can see a little steel logo. So it's an allusion to the history and the of the region. There's it's a blue collar town that there's a lot of I guess mystique associated with the steel industry and the hard workers that lived in Pittsburgh and worked there, and then that was supposed to be embodied in the Steelers, the way they played and the way they coached, and I mean, I don't know. That's about. I used to think when I was a child, I thought it was well, before I knew how it was spelled, I thought it was because they stole the ball a lot. So it's not that dumb. It's much cooler than that, right? Um, so okay, so there's a lot of history and tradition in the Steeler name, and its expression of the values of the people of Pittsburgh. Um, I don't know what the Vikings have to do with Minnesota. Uh, I mean, I don't know a lot about the Vikings in general, like the real Vikings, not the team, the Vikings. But if there were real Vikings in Minnesota, I would be surprised. uh, um, I don't really get what the sort of what's so compelling about the Vikings as a team name. But maybe that's just my bias. Maybe the things I value in their team name are the things that I can find in the Steelers. Uh, team name as opposed to the Vikings. I mean, the Vikings, yeah, that's cool. Like I have nothing against the Vikings as a people. I'm not anti-Viking, but I don't know what. I mean, you could have picked a lot of things. You could have. I mean, was Vikings better than uh, Martians or Romans or what? I mean, there's a lot of things that have no connection to, like the Pittsburgh Romans. Would that have been a good team name? No, I don't think so. Uh,
We're
so I'm not sure. I don't see the appeal of the Viking.
it was the only thought I have is was Minnesota by any chance? I don't know this to be true, but was it settled by Scandinavian people? I don't know. Uh,
I have no
there were
idea.
some Scandinavian
Uh,
explorers, so I wonder if they made their way to that region. I don't know. It's grasping at a straw. I don't know if that's actually true.
if any Vikings fans know, we could easily look it up, I guess, but that wouldn't be fun. You have to tell us where, or set us straight. uh, yeah, no,
Uh,
I don't know. There's my pitch for the Steelers. Yeah, it's
I
capturing the sentiment of a region.
and I have some Pittsburgh bias. Full disclosure, having also just gone to college in Pittsburgh, but I would say that I don't think any city has sports teams that embody the city as much as Pittsburgh does. And I think that starts with the Steelers. But even just the fact that like all the teams are black and yellow and that kind of that association is there and that continuity is there. I think it is a city whose teams are of the people and much more so than most cities in the country.
Yeah, it's certainly supposed. I think they chose the name thinking that they were going to reflect the people of the city, right? And that's what they hope to do.
All right. So next question, I think the Chiefs did win the Super Bowl, but the Steelers had a member win the award that apparently the NFL markets as like the highest honor that an NFL player can receive, with Cam Heyward getting the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. You kind of touched a little bit on Cam. I think you talked a little bit about Steelers leaders, and his name came up. We didn't talk a little bit of that much about him in depth, but anything about Cam Hayward, his leadership, his service? I think Peter King said something to the effect of like he's not sure that anybody has done more for their community than Cam Hayward. I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly what he said, but that was this general sentiment. Um, so any kind of thoughts about Cam Hayward and what he means to the team and what kind of person he is?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my thoughts about him are sort of secondhand, but a lot of the people that I respect that follow the team, like sort of the beat writers and things like that, will every year when he doesn't win the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, will say it's a he should have won it essentially, right? And I'm sure that they will, this is a common refrain for reporters for any team, but I tend to believe them, that that he has deserved to win it for a while, and it's really great to see that he actually did win it this year. Uh, he's the kind of player that just, yeah, I mean, he's a great leader for the team, and it sounds like he's a great leader for the community as well, and doesn't take for granted that he's able to do this, and wants to give back to the community that sort of lets him do it and that respects him and reveres him. Seems like it's mutual. He respects, reveres the community as well. So it's I think it's very well deserved. Again, it's not like I know all the candidates, and I know know their relationships to their communities, what they do. I don't even know that much about exactly what Cam Hayward does, but just knowing him as a person through interviews, yeah, kind of person that you're very happy to see win that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have other thoughts about it, but it was cool. It was cool to see him. It was cool to see Tomlin at the awards ceremony as well, and sort of like I'm sure he was pleased. We're very happy for Cam, but yeah, that's cool stuff.
I have a feeling that Cam is going to be one of those people that's on the level of the way that like Tomlin talks about Marquise Pouncey. I think didn't he say about Pouncey that like it was his one regret that he didn't get Pouncey a ring or something like that. I feel like he's
Yeah.
going to hold Cam in that kind of esteem.
Yeah, I think that's right. He said something about that. He said in his end of year press conference, which was endlessly engaging, as I said before, he mentioned this about regretting that Pouncey didn't get to be a world champion, and Pouncey had a reply. I think it was on Instagram saying something like, "No, you made me a champion at life, coach," which is very sweet. Uh,
Yeah.
but but yeah, hopefully we can win a ring with Cam still. Not looking promising, but maybe.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean to imply that Cam wouldn't get a ring. You
Uh,
know.
I would bet against it. Let's put it that way.
All right, next question. Early free agent thoughts for this coming year now. Who's your number one target? I know we talked a little bit about L'Jarius Sneed. Is he like your number one guy that you want?
Hmm, that's good. Well, we might be. The latest rumor is that we are looking into Tannehill,
I saw that.
which is hard to get really excited about. Like, let's be real. Um, but it makes sense. He's run offense with Arthur Smith before and been successful, and it's not like we have a ton of great options. So the latest on Rudolph is it sounds like he might want to leave. We just released Mitchell Trubisky, I think, today. So right now it's Pickett and no one. So clearly we're going to add somebody. And I guess I should start trying to get myself excited about adding Tannehill, so that if it happens, I will have something to feel aside from dead inside. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess that, what's the best hope with Tannehill? I mean, the best hope is that I don't know, can you win a Super Bowl with him? It's not not my not my mental picture of who Tannehill is, no. But but maybe that could change, right? Maybe you could win a Super Bowl with Tannehill. Um,
He made an AFC title game.
yeah, yeah, that's right. And there were years where, yeah, I mean, I didn't I didn't look forward to playing the Titans in those, what, 2 years? I don't remember if we played them both years, but they seemed like a somewhat scary team.
Yeah.
Not scary, scary, but the kind of team that like, they're going to be tough. Um, I did, speaking of Arthur Smith, uh, just have a bit of a digression here, but about his offenses and Alex Kozora is one of the Steelers people I follow on Twitter who does some nice breakdowns of like film breakdowns every once in a while. He posts those on YouTube, which if you're a Steelers fan, he's a good follow. But he was looking at some film from the Falcons offense back in 2022, again when Arthur Smith was there, and showing how they had run. I think it was out of the same formation. They ran 9 different plays in one game and had several explosive plays. This was actually against the Steelers in 2022 when we played them, and they had several explosive plays out of that single formation, which sort of the takeaway from the video is supposed to be, right, this is smart offensive coaching because you're not giving away the play to the defense, and there's a lot of different things they might expect to happen, or they don't know what to expect to happen because you keep running different things out of the same formation, which great. Like I'm on board with that. There was a little bit more to what was going on in the formation that I don't know what to make of, which is that each time they were in the format, the Falcons were in this formation. They had two tight ends to one side, and then before the play, they would both go in motion, and one would turn around halfway through and go back, and then before the ball was snapped, the other one would end up going back. So they sort of went in motion and went backward to where they started. And they did this every time they ran out of that formation. They ran a play out of that formation. Um, and I was a little perplexed by that because you would have thought that if the goal was to get the defense into a certain sort of state of confusion about what play was about to be run, you could do that just by running the plays out of the same formation without the motion each time. And so then the question is, what is the motion doing for you? And usually the motion is telling the offense something about whether the defense is in man or zone. And then presumably they would adjust accordingly. But there was, in those plays, no obvious adjustment that the offense was making based on whether someone followed the tight ends across the formation or not. And maybe, like I was trying to speculate about what could be gained by the motion here. And I honestly don't know. Maybe it's that the whole offense is simultaneously diagnosing whether it's man or zone and then deciding what play to run as a result. I guess you could do that. It does seem unlikely that the whole offense is going to be watching that, but maybe. Um, or maybe there's some sort of long run, like season long play calling strategy that I'm not getting there. But it seemed like from what I saw, it looked like a sort of gratuitous motion that wasn't doing anything to make the confusion on the defense's side any worse. And it's not clear what the offense was gaining from it because it didn't look like they ever made any adjustments based on whether someone followed the tight ends across the formation or not. So that's something that, like, I don't know, partly promising and partly worrying because it's not clear what the logic is for putting them in motion each play. Maybe you're just making the defensive player run a bit more, but that's how bad can that be? Right?
Well, and like because I know the thing about Andy Reid's offense is that the receivers are supposed to make site adjustments based on the coverage, and so they have like a couple options on their routes, and if you know it's man versus zone, theoretically you might get a better idea of how they're trying to leverage you. But I don't. Why do you have to put two people in motion? Why not one?
Yeah, there's a lot of wrinkles to the motion too, because again, one of the tight ends would stop like basically as he's crossing the center and turn back, and then the other one would go all the way across and then turn back after about a second or two. Uh, what's the point of that? I guess it's maybe to see. You can imagine that's revealing if only one person goes across the formation, that's revealing which of the tight ends they're manned with. Um, yeah, but the other wrinkle here is that on I think 8 of those 9 plays, or maybe it was 7, those were running plays, and I'm not sure what is. I mean, maybe you adjust who you're blocking based on whether it's man or zone, but I'm not really sure when. I, it's not something I'm familiar with,
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
so it wouldn't be a route adjustment either.
Interesting. And the other thing, I'm always scared about two guys in motion because then if you have two people in motion simultaneously, they both have to get set before you snap the ball. Otherwise, it's an illegal procedure. So that's also a little worrisome. You're playing with a little more fire when you're sending two people instead of one.
Yeah, yeah, we've all been there. Right? We've all gotten burned by that fire. Anyway, that was an Arthur Smith musing. Not sure what to make of it.
Yeah, and is it bad to say that, like, I don't know that I would expect that Arthur Smith has as sophisticated offense as Andy Reid. Like maybe Andy Reid has side adjustments in his offense, but maybe Arthur Smith doesn't. I don't know. I mean, maybe he
Yeah.
does, but
No, it's not the kind of thing that you would expect. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Andy Reid has more of a reputation for being a really, having a very complex and intelligent offense. I'm not sure that Arthur Smith has that reputation yet. Maybe he's earning it now. We'll see.
all right. Well, I do have a couple more Steelers questions, but maybe we should take a break and then
Okay,
get back to
sounds
them.
good.
All right. And we're back. Um, all right. So the next Steelers question. Um, so I wanted your commentary on the whole T.J. Watt versus Myles Garrett Defensive Player of the Year debate. And particularly, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, Micah Parsons really was strongly making the case for Myles Garrett. Almost to the point where it kind of felt like he was disparaging TJ Watt a little bit. I don't know if that was just him caring about the certain stats or whether there's anything with him in TJ Watt. I wasn't sure. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, it wasn't clear why Micah Parsons was so invested in that either. Sorry, I ate some spicy nachos over the break, and I'm regretting that at the moment. Um, but but yeah, I mean, a lot of my timeline or my Twitter feed is Steelers fans complaining about this. And on the one hand, I can I guess I'm ambivalent. Like I can get into the state where like it upsets me because if you look at you would think the stats that matter, TJ Watt has was ahead in basically every such stat this season. But then if you look at like the PFF grades where they're um, weighing things like pass rush win rate, double team win rate, that kind of thing, then evidently Garrett comes out higher in a lot of those categories. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I guess the part of me that wants to get angry is gonna say what Garrett had one sack over the final, I think 7 games, um, which is not a lot, just for the record, right? Watt finished the league leading the league in sacks. Finished the year leading the league in sacks with 19. I think Watt or Garrett had 14 or 15 or something like that. Which it's nothing to like, you know, what's the snub your nose at? Is that an expression? Um, but it's not, Watt was definitely better in those categories, right? Um, Now I don't watch Garrett as much as closely, but the number of times that I've seen TJ Watt turn a game around for us this year or in the past is just I've lost track of how many times he's done that. And Garrett has definitely had big games. Obviously, he's had some against us too. He's also used a helmet as a weapon against us. um, but I'm fine with Garrett, winning it. I guess the part of me that wants to be angry is not the large part of me. The large part of me just says whatever, right? It's in some sense it's to our advantage if TJ Watt has fewer Defensive Player of the Year awards because we won't have to pay him as much next time around. Um, but and also it'll make him mad and he'll work extra hard maybe this. I mean, I don't know if that's really true, but he said it'll be motivation for him next year. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm fine with it, I think. I think maybe I'm just talking myself out of being mad, but I don't think I want to be mad about it. So that's where I've gotten to.
Well, and it does seem like, and to be completely frank, I haven't looked into this very much, but I do remember a couple years ago it coming up a lot that TJ Watt's sack to pressure ratio was very high, like abnormally high. And it does seem like he's just not someone that advanced stats like it. He's kind of consistently maintained the counting stats even when the advanced metrics don't like him as much, which shows that maybe the advanced metrics are not as predictive for his performance as they are for the league as an aggregate.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember that sack to pressure ratio being high, and I think it was probably high again this year. Um, One thing that's interesting about him is if you watch him a lot of these sacks, he'll close the ground between him and the quarterback very quickly with like 1 or 2 steps when he looks like he should be falling over, but he's at like a maybe like a 30-degree angle with the ground, and he can still take enormous steps like that uh, and get to the quarterback. And so I think maybe that's something that the stats aren't picking up on, but or the advanced stats aren't picking up on. But I don't know. Whatever he's done, he's figured out how to finish the deal at a higher rate than others, I think. And that seems like a good thing, not a bad thing. I don't know. Yeah,
Well, yeah, because
I'm
they
glad he's on our
used
team.
to. It reminds me a little bit of they used to talk all the time about Mahomes' turnover worthy plays, and that they're like, well, it's not sustainable to keep having these turnover worthy plays and fewer turnovers. And it's true, his turnover numbers have gone up a little bit in the past couple of years, but he remains someone who's not, especially when it matters, he's somebody who kind of keeps the ball safe. So sometimes there are individuals that kind of break these statistical trends, and you can't then use those stats solely to explain their performance.
Yeah, I think that's how I kind of felt about Mason Rudolph this year. I mean, if you watched him in maybe the advanced stats are not quite the target here. But if you watched him in those those last what 4 games with us, uh, it didn't look like he was doing that well. It didn't. It looked like the pocket would be collapsing and he'd be sitting there and you'd be like, "It's time to go, Mason," and he'd just be sitting there, and then suddenly he would like get a throw off very quickly and it would be completed. And so I kept thinking he was very lucky to get all those throws off, but maybe I mean, the number of times he did it or the frequency with which he did it makes me wonder if he had a better pocket awareness than I was giving him credit for and knew sort of when to expect someone to come open and knew he had to wait just a little bit longer. But he is another situation like that where you think like that's not sustainable, and yet he sustained it at least longer than I expected over 4 games this year. So yeah, I think that's a case where you have to question the stat itself, or the metric itself, if it's telling you that this person that is making game plays on such a regular basis is not as good as someone who is making fewer such plays.
Hmm. All right, and then my last question is about the cuts that have happened recently. I think Mitchell Trubisky, the punter Harvin, and the line Okorafor, I believe is his name,
Yeah.
were cut. I particularly like Trubisky. Doesn't surprise me that much. I honestly don't know that much about Okorafor, if I'm saying his name correctly, but I feel like to be a seventh round punter and to be cut on your rookie contract, there's got to be some real performance concerns. So thoughts about those cuts and what it says about what the team's trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Trubisky is not surprising, given his performance this year. Yeah, obviously, we wish that had gone better, but Okorafor is also not surprising. He was starting at the beginning of the year, and then was benched partway through, and it was a little unclear why he was benched. There were some different reports about it, but Roderick Jones went in and started. He was okay, I guess. I mean, they ask different people and they'll still say different things, but good to get the rookie playing time, I think, if nothing else. And um, yeah, Harvin has been pretty erratic over the course of his career. He'll have like a really good training camp or something, and then when it comes game time, he'll have one good punt and then two terrible punts and then a good punt and then a okay punt. But he can be good. It just he's never been very consistent at it, and sometimes he gives his worst punts come at the worst times for us. So I don't know if it's psychological or what, but it doesn't seem like he has not been as reliable as we would want him to be. So I wonder if we'll draft a punter this year. We definitely are going to be in the market for one. So. Anyway, I'm not surprised by any of those cuts. I guess Harvin is maybe the most surprising, uh, which is not to say that he's surprising. But Tomlin had seemed to be sticking with him, and seemed to be committed to him. Although again, I think maybe it was in the year-end press conference or it was one of the later press conferences in the season. He acknowledged that Harvin had to be better than he was being, punt better than he was punting. So I guess that's not surprising either. So none of those are that surprising, but I am glad that we are moving on from Trubisky.
And I believe the Trubisky cut and maybe the Okorafor cut saved quite a bit of money too, right?
Yeah, I think we should be in pretty good cap space or cap position once we do a few things, but those cuts are going to be helpful in that regard as well. So we'll see what we can do. We should have room to play with. Whether we play wisely, we'll see.
All right. Well, that was it for me for the state of the Steelers. I know
I do
we kind of.
have.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you asked this question last week about plays that I would change in Steelers history. Um, I came up with a boatload more, and I don't want to maybe.
Oh no, this is
I
good.
won't unload them all at once, but I will say maybe one or one. I'll say one today, uh, which is an obvious one I should have thought of. But in the 2012 playoffs, wild card round at Denver, um, that was unfortunate. I think it was 2012. In fact, now I'm maybe I've blocked it out. I don't remember exactly when it was. But anyway, we dig ourselves an early hole against Denver, then we go back and tie it, and then first play in overtime, Tim Tebow hits Demarius Thomas on an 80-yard touchdown pass, and we leave. Um, that was a fun game, right? That was that was not at all fucking. There was nothing fun about the game. Not even like coming back from an early deficit was fun at that time because we thought we were supposed to win. The Broncos were like 8-8 and somehow hosting us in the playoffs, and we were 12-4, and we go in and we lose to them. And that was just a nothing good about that. Um, but that's another one I would change. But it's not like we were going to be. I think that would I would only change that because of how much pain that caused me at the time. It's not like we were going to win the Super Bowl that year. I don't think we were that fantastic of a team. But no, that must have been 2011. Well, whatever it
Yeah, I think it
was.
was 2011.
Yeah, I think that's right. Because 2012 we did not do well. Um, anyway,
I just
I got
remember
more, but I don't
because
want to relive them all right now.
I just remember because we had still had Todd Haley as a coach when. So I don't know if you remember, but we were the first team that Tim Tebow like beat, and like he the week before he had played the Lions, and they were still trying to use him like a traditional quarterback, and they got like absolutely crushed. I don't remember what the score was, but they just got dominated. And here we are, like trying hosting Denver. It's gonna be great. They're starting Tim Tebow, and they just go on this like straight run heavy offense. Like Tim Tebow, I'm completely pulling a number from nowhere. Like I bet he attempted like maybe 10 to 12 passes that game. That's it. Like, and they beat us, and it was horrible. And that started his like little famous run. So if you really want to blame anyone, you can blame us. Like if we had shut that down, maybe that didn't happen. But
Well, I think the week after they beat us, they went to New England, if I remember correctly. That was like the one time I was happy that New England beat somebody in the playoffs. Usually I was cheering against them, but that time I was like, yeah, please just take Tebow out. Like, we know he's not good. Uh, but anyway.
well, you know what? Since we're on this topic, I will pose a question to you that I thought of. Because I feel like responsible. I have created these like negative. You're reliving all these negative periods through Steelers history now because of the question I had. So let me. I'm sure that will continue, but at least you can simultaneously relive some more fun thing. I thought of this question: what individual now you have to think of a play in history that has will impact your team not at all, like have zero impact to your team. You want to change the outcome of a play just for the pure fun of it in NFL history. Like you wish something happened and it didn't happen. I can give you an example of a play that made me think about this. Do you remember in, I'm not going to get the year right. I feel like this actually might have also been 2011, but it's somewhere around then when the Patriots were playing the Packers. I think it was a Sunday night football game. I think Aaron Rodgers was hurt. Anyway, not an important detail. And the Packers squibbed a kick, and the up lineman, Dan Connolly, picked it up and ran like 70 yards or something with it. My choice would be that he score a touchdown on that play, just because I feel like that would have been amazing. It would have just been so great if he had kept. The thing I remember about that play is he comes up and he's, you know how like linemen when they hold the ball they hold it like it's like a loaf of bread, and he's like running with it, and he going down the sideline, and then he cuts it back inside and gets like an extra 10 yards. But he got so close. I think he got inside the 10. But that would be my choice of like a play that it's not allowed to impact your team or their fortunes at all, just a play you would change just because it would have been cool if it had been different. I think that would have been my play. I wish Dan Connolly scored on that touchdown on that play.
That's a good question. I mean, like, there's still ways of being strategic about this. Like, one play that immediately came to mind was in the Seahawks Patriots Super Bowl. Just make them run it at the end there instead of the pass that gets picked off. Just because I would have liked to see the Patriots lose another Super Bowl. But I guess there's also like a little bit of uh, leeway with how much one can change the play, right? Like, uh, like I could just pick a random play and then change it in a way that makes it totally absurd, right? So I think we want a play that was like close to being really absurd, right? Or that was absurd, but you could have made it even more absurd. That's the sense I get from the play that you were talking about. Um, one of them that would be funny. Do you remember that time it was like the Colts were playing the Patriots. I have no idea what year this was. It was probably some 2014, 15, something like that. And they ran a trick play where they had like the whole team lined up outside, and it was just like the center snapping to the, I don't know if it was the punter
Punter, I
or the
think. Yeah, I
quarterback.
think it was the punter. I think it was Pat McAfee, actually. Wasn't it
I think
Pat
that's right.
McAfee?
Yeah, I think that's right. To make that play work, I would have loved to see that play work because there's no way that play should work. What do they think was going to happen? It gets snapped and he gets tackled, basically. But uh, yeah, if that play had worked, it would have been phenomenal.
Yeah, that would have
Maybe I
been
would have liked to
hilarious.
see that.
That was one of those plays where like I cannot figure out what they wanted to happen. You know, like, and to be fair, it's been a long time since I looked at it. Maybe there was more there than I remember, but my memory of it is just like you're watching the play and you're like, I mean, clearly they had some goal, but I can't figure out what it was.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where Kayla and I were talking last week maybe about like, is genius close to madness? Uh, it was one of those. It's like one of those questions. We got some question game or whatever, and that was one of the questions that came up in there. And I was thinking, well, kind of. Maybe like genius is just like a little bit, or madness is just like a little bit past genius, such that it's sort of unclear at that point. So the steps you'd have to take to get there are just too many for the normal person to see, right? The normal person can see the steps you have to take to get to a genius, but not to madness. And this is maybe a case like that, right? Like, I don't even know who the coach was at the time, but maybe there was just like one too many steps for the normal person to see, and then the normal people, Pat's defenders, just played it the way a normal person would play it, and it went the way you would expect. But anyway, I'm not sure if that analogy made any sense, but that was a play where, yeah, if that had gone if that had gone well, that would have been really fun.
Yeah, that's it. I like that genius versus madness. I actually like that analogy a lot. I've always thought of it like, there's some area where things are clearly genius, and there's some area where things are clearly madness, and then there's this area that I feel like our determination of whether it's genius or madness is entirely results based. We don't
Hmm.
actually look at the process; it's based on the outcome. It's like a trick play. If a trick play goes well, you're a genius as a coach. If a trick play fails, you're an idiot as a coach. You're getting too cute. And I feel like there's a lot that's on that border that we just describe as genius versus madness just based on the outcome.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's a good question. I'm going to keep thinking about that though, because I bet there are other plays like that where if they had worked, or if something had gone slightly differently, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, that's. But the hard part for me is like trying to think of what, because I have so many Chiefs plays like that. But it's like, well, what about? It's just got to be for the love of the game, or for it's something that, not for your team seeding, not for your team anything. Just like, I don't know. I found that an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
All
Should we
right.
get to some personal stories?
Yeah, let's do it.
I have a brief one, um, which should I start? I think it's my turn to start this week,
All
right?
right.
So in those Papa John's pizza boxes, how you always get a little cup of garlic sauce. Um, you know where this is going. Our viewers might wonder, has anyone ever drank one of those? Straight, like a shot. The answer is yes, it has happened. It happened in our ninth grade English class, or right before it. We were, you know, hungry teenage adolescent boys. There's an empty Papa John's pizza box, but one of our friends, I'm not sure if I can use his name, one of our friends noticed that the garlic sauce was not eaten, and being hungry, thought, well, I guess I could just drink it. I don't remember if I encouraged this or not. It would not have been
I
unlike me
I
to
think you
encourage
did.
this.
I think you did.
Uh, okay, well, there. This is more revealing than I thought it was going to be because now it's a commentary on my character as well. But yes, he took a shot, or took the garlic sauce as a shot, just as the English teacher walked into the room and thought, well, that was disgusting. Um, so it can be done, and I think this is also it's important to remember here that as a teenager, your taste buds are quite alive, right? Everything has a lot more flavor than, at least to me, it does nowadays. So it's quite a bold move to take a shot of garlic sauce, which I mean, maybe it's actually not as bold because if I took a shot of that now, I think it would just taste kind of like a sort of fatty liquid going down my throat. I'm not sure I would get much flavor from it, but at the time there was probably more flavor to it when you're a teenager. Anyway, that was great. I revealed more than I wanted to about myself. But, yeah.
That's fine. Well, wait till you see how revealing this next story is. Your your anecdote last week immediately reminded me of this anecdote. There was a time in our schooling. I think this was when we were. Actually, I'm quite sure it was when we were in 10th grade, and we were at the now aforementioned on multiple occasions Columbia Independent School. And during Columbia Independent School, we had a period in the middle after lunch that was called Pride, which was basically a study hall. Our mascot was the lion, so it was a very clever name. And it was like a study hall, and you kind of grouped by grade, and you were in your Pride. And so once you hit 10th grade, like we were kind of, the classes got smaller, so 10th through 12th grade were all together in one Pride. And we occasionally were productive, but a lot of times not. And there was a period of time when, I think this actually started with Vladik a little bit earlier, but it transferred on to you and me. We got really into spelling words backwards and saying words backwards so that people would not know what we were talking about. And we thought we were really clever, and we decided to come up with, I don't remember how this started, but we decided to come up with like business names that were names of rude words backwards, and tried to think about how creatively we could market them. And I remember our first one, I'm just going to spell it, like those of you can think about what it spells, but we first thought that ELOHSSA, Alosa, would be like a funny business name. But we thought it was a little too obvious, like people would figure out what it meant. So we thought if we made an airline and we called it Elos Air, then it would, and we even like drew a mock-up of like what the logo would look like, and I think our slogan was like flying you where you've never flown before. And we also came up, I remember, with a name of a laboratory called SL Lab, and we came up with a logo for that too. And the part that is the funniest to me is during our Pride period, we drew our mock-ups in the notebook of a classmate that we had, who and we would just like draw them and whatever, and we had forgotten that our math teacher used to do notebook checks as like his way of checking homework. And she came to us like a couple weeks later and opened up her notebook, and like it said in the math papers, like red ink, like, why is this in your calculus? Oh my god.
Oh wow, I forgot about that. That's a deep cut. Yeah, oh god.
And
that was real mature. That's good.
Like that is who we were in high school. Like we thought that was real
right.
clever. Yeah. I just remember like how hard we laughed when we saw in his handwriting, the math teacher's handwriting, why is this in your math notebook?
I forgot about those notebook checks too. Yeah, we should have seen that coming.
Yeah, I don't know how we didn't.
Why were we writing it in her notebook?
I think she was just sitting next to us, and she was doing her math homework in Pride, and we
like a responsible person.
Yeah, and we were drawing mock-ups of these fake businesses that we were coming up with, and that resulted in her. I don't remember, but I wonder if she lost points on that. I don't know. I just remember it saying, "Why is this in your notebook?" in like a red pen.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting from the teacher's perspective too. If I were grading something and I saw that on it, I would. There'd be a debate, I think, whether I should comment on it at all. But I think if you're doing a notebook check, you have to comment on that if it's in the notebook. So must have been like I bet if I remember who the teacher was, I bet he knew it was not that student's handwriting. It was he probably knows our handwriting, to be
Yeah,
honest.
he must have known it was us.
Ooh, yeah,
Well,
that's good. Well, there you have it. We are we are those people.
yeah. Yes, we most certainly are. And I guess, if you are a fan of mediocre sports podcasting, maybe that gives you hope that we were those people that are those people right now. Maybe, if you want to become like us, there's a pathway.
Yeah,
This
if
is
you are
achievable.
currently coming up with ridiculous company names in your friends' notebooks, someday you could be here.
This could be your life.
Look how good you can have it.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, that's good.
all
Well,
right.
a good place to end it.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone, as always, for watching and listening. Again, please check out the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And until next time.
And Twitter. We're
And
on
Twitter.
too.
Oh, yeah. What's our Twitter handle?
I don't actually remember what our Twitter handle is. It gave me one that I tried to pick STCF8 out of allegiance to pick it, I guess. But it didn't. Twitter's annoying and it gave me some random thing. So we're thoughts. Hold on, I'll pull it up here.
Let's see if I can
Uh,
find it.
We're thoughts 14820.
All right.
Very very
It
natural.
rolls off the tongue. Yeah.
That's-
Maybe one day we'll be able to change it if Elon lets us. But for now, find us at Twitter on thoughts14820.
exactly.
All right. All right. Until
All right,
next
see you
time.
next time.